Hello, everyone. Welcome to Tea with TPS. Today, our distinguished guest is Chandrasekhar Balagopal, an administrator, an entrepreneur, a management guru, a banker, a philanthropist, an author, traveler, and Facebook enthusiast, and so on. He had his claim to fame is that he had the courage to leave the Indian administrative service and go into manufacturing. This was a time when the word startup had not been invented yet. So he had probably started the first startup in Kerala and then grew into a multinational with the collaboration of a Japanese firm and made it the largest manufacturer of blood bags in the whole of India. And then, of course, now he is on the board of the Federal Bank. He has established a philanthropic trust, which work he does very quietly behind the scenes, as he says. And therefore, he is such a person of many parts. And I'm sure the viewers will enjoy our conversations with him. Welcome, Bala, and thank you for joining me.
It's good to be here, TPS.
Well, we can probably start with the biggest crisis that we are facing, not only Kerala, but the whole world. That's why we call this program Kerala and the World. So that is nothing but the coronavirus, the COVID-19. And let us start with how we have handled it in Kerala. You have seen it, you have been in it.
Yeah.
And it was a great success at one point. And then we also fell into the same situation as the rest of the world. But even most recently, our health minister is on the list of the brave women in the Vogue magazine. So that means she still retains that kind of aura that she had developed. If you go by Donald Trump's definition, no administrator can be blamed or praised for coronavirus. It comes and goes. So how would you assess this from that perspective? Is that manageable? Was it managed? And what is the present problem?
It's a very interesting question, and I think it is very topical, TPS. When the pandemic started, I think in India, Kerala was the one where the first cases were reported as 2 students who returned from Wuhan tested positive. I mean, they reported themselves in for testing, and when they tested, they found themselves positive. That was the first cases reported in India. Now, if you look at the initial response, it was very interesting that the the Kerala public health system seemed to move into operation very swiftly. And this happened at 2 levels. One was at the community level, right down to the panchayat level. And also the public health services in terms of readying hospitals, especially government hospitals and first-line treatment centers, etc. That possibly received more attention, and what passed unnoticed was the fact that there was a kind of identification of the vulnerable sections, that is the people over 65 who had comorbidities. And every single person, what was astonishing was because I went into it in some detail, that every person, even right down to the panchayat ward level, to the household level, they were identified. Asha workers were assigned to such people who did not have their relatives to look after them. There was also the local self-help groups of Kudumbashri, as well as the local self-government ward councillors who were involved. So what I'm saying is this kind of community level surveillance of the vulnerable sections was something which kicked into action immediately. And it is very interesting that this is ascribed to the social and institutional memory from previous epidemics which were short-lived but threatened to get out of control in Kerala, like Nipah and then earlier the SARS and other viruses. So I think 2 things: the resilience of the field level response was, I think, what was most impressive. Because I think otherwise one would get the impression that you have a very dynamic and very efficient public health service system with all the officials all springing into action. I don't think, I think that is a little far-fetched kind of image. What is the image, I mean, what is true and what was unnoticed was what happened at the field level, at the ASHA worker and the self-help group volunteer and primary health center level. That was a very critical. That's what held the infectivity rate down in the.
But you agree
stages.
You agree with the theory that this would not withstand the incoming people from the Gulf and other parts of India. Was that a turning point?
Yeah. See, the problem, I think, TPS is that, as I mentioned, this identified the vulnerable sections and there were steps to take care of them. In fact, just to one more point I wish to make before answering your question is, if in my view, the main explanation for the lower death rate in Kerala, even compared to the other states in Kerala, the mortality rate here per infection, per 1,000 infections, is lowest in Kerala. It is the lowest. I think it is the main reason which can be ascribed to that is that the vulnerable sections have been well looked after and identified right at the beginning itself. See, once you get the infection, there's very little which can be really done. What you have to do is to try to prevent such vulnerable people with comorbidities from getting the infection. So that's what happened, and that's what is keeping the mortality rate down. But this system cannot prevent people who are positive when they're coming in. What happens is that number has to be stopped either at the borders with border checks. So I remember reading in the newspapers that the government of Kerala requested states from where people were planning to come back to Kerala, saying that at the boarding point, please see that they have a COVID test done. Now, many of the other state governments said they are not geared up to do it, or for various reasons they refused to do it.
Yes, the tests were not available, simple as that.
The tests were not available for various reasons. So what happened was, when they arrived here in Kerala and they were subjected to the testing processes here, many of them were found to be positive. And since there are all sorts of issues like there is a window period during which when the virus is incubating and nothing is really manifest and it's still asymptomatic, at that time infection can spread. So I think it is a fact that this thing started to apparently go out of control during that phase. Of course, then what happened was, I think the Onam part also definitely played a role, because the numbers went really much higher than the normal returning numbers.
Then strikes and dharnas and various
and
other activities.
The political agitations also definitely did not help in that process. But even then, what must be said is, and I've heard this from various people anecdotally, what I'm hearing is that despite the fact that for the last 3-4 weeks, the average daily caseload, positive cases reported from Kerala was among the highest among all states in India, even then, there was a sense among the people and among even the health service officials, they were not apprehensive about being overwhelmed by it. They seemed to have prepared for it, and they were ready with the number. Because if you look at the percentage of first-line treatment centers and second-line treatment centers, the bed occupancy, except in places like, say, Trivandrum Medical College Hospital and a couple of the premier tertiary care hospitals, which were almost full. In many of the other cases, there was sufficient capacity to take care of surges. I think that's the crucial thing in a pandemic is, do we have the spare capacity, reserve capacity to take care of a surge? And Kerala seems to be, so far, not in the danger zone there, both in terms of taking care of those who require hospitalization, plus those who require ventilator support and ICU support.
No, but the present state of comfort Is it justified? Why do we go for an election? Why are we opening the temples? Why are they necessary? We could still wait for a couple of months more. Like we are careful about not opening schools. So, but now everything, so a sense of a point of relaxation has come, and that may create even more problems. Why is it not being done?
Yeah, no, that is, I think that is truly the, what shall I say, the 10,000 rupee question as to why these things were taken at this stage. Now, I can only imagine that this is really politics. Again, it's politics as usual, in the sense that, and both, I would blame both the government as well as the opposition parties, because it's like the government, I think their memory must be, the memories of the previous Sabarimala related agitation, when their handling of some delicate issues were pretty ham-handed, and that led to a lot of pushback from the people, and they felt that they suffered major election reverses in the last parliamentary election. I mean, that's their reading, because of their mishandling of that. So I think they've become ultra cautious about treading on anything to do with religion, which is why if you see even the church-related matter with the Supreme Court order, they've been going very cautiously in implementing the court orders. And the High Court has actually found a fault with the state government, saying, why are you not implementing the court orders? Because they are going very, very carefully where I think religious matters are concerned. And as far as the elections is concerned also, I think probably, like now house to house visiting by candidates, and the traditional kind of canvassing for local body.
It's already started. It's already started.
And that's extremely unwise, and I'm sure it is definitely not something which should have been done at this time.
Bala, there is also the other justification that if we don't open up these things, economy will collapse. Yeah. That is an argument that Donald Trump himself has advanced. Is that element also there? If there was some board has no money, if churches have no money, and that kind of argument.
No, well, I don't know about the religious bodies and their coffers, their donation boxes being empty because people are not going to the church or to the temples, etc. What you're saying is possibly correct.
But also trade and investment.
But about business and economic activity, I still think that the lockdown could be eased, provided the public, and especially both the shopkeepers as well as the business operators, owners, as well as the public, if they cooperate by observing the basic rules of physical distancing, wearing of masks, and avoiding overcrowding of within shops. Because I've noticed some of the shops we go to, in fact, my wife and I, we have selected the one or two places where we go to shop because we noticed that they observe the physical distancing very carefully. So it's not that because they were the best shops or the best stocked shops, but we felt safer going inside there, because if the prescribed number was already inside the shop, they used to ask the rest to wait outside. So I think if the
it's not uniform. If it was uniform, maybe we would have done better.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, to launch ourselves from here to United States, because coronavirus is common to both, what do you think is going to happen? And what do you hear from your friends in the US?
As far as the pandemic there is concerned?
Plus, it's connected. Pandemic plus politics.
Yeah. No, see, for the pandemic situation, actually, right now it looks like everybody is keeping their fingers crossed about the vaccine, because the number of infections seems to be spiraling out of control.
Absolutely.
If you take the last 2 weeks, the daily average has actually been going up, and yesterday it has gone up beyond 150,000 cases reported in one day for the first time.
And 300,000 deaths from 240 at the election time.
That's right. So suddenly this has been shooting. And what the other thing is, there is no particular hotspot. Now I've been watching the Johns Hopkins COVID tracker, where they've got this thing.
The graphs,
and they give these bubble drawings for the last 2 weeks and the last 4 weeks. And that's very alarming, because now the bubbles are there all over. It's not concentrated in one or two regions like Texas or Florida or California. It is now all over the place. So it looks like, as the pundits had, the epidemiologists had forecast, that with the onset of winter, the number of cases they are expecting it to increase. And plus the fact that people have become very blasé and very casual about it, and especially with wrong signals coming from the White House about to take it.
President-elect Biden himself said this is going to be a dark winter. So do you think he will be able to do any wonders in establishing a committee or anything like that?
Yeah.
It's not going to make an immediate difference.
It can make TPS. I feel because of when you consider I don't know the US society that well. I've just been a fairly frequent visitor for the last 10 years, but I've not lived there. I can't say I understand really how it works. But the point is, for a highly organized, with all the individualism and all that there, when you look at the kind of resources which are available, if there was purposeful leadership and the correct expertise which they undoubtedly have, people start listening to them. And if a task force is formed and they're given the necessary directions to go ahead and do what is necessary, I think they will be able to do something. The problem here is, from the media, it appears that the present president is not he doesn't recognize Biden as the president-elect. And hence that no transition mechanism has started working. No transition team has been recognized by Trump.
The inbox of Biden's is crowding up. So.
Exactly. So because of that, I think it is going to, unless Trump relents and is persuaded that, look here, why not take this is going to really make things worse for him and for his political prospects. Unless some coin drops like that, I think it can be quite messy this winter. So things are going to get worse before they get better. So,
but my theory is that the Republican Party holds the key.
Yeah.
Because he just grabbed the Republican Party. He's not a Republican of any kind. He doesn't fit into any of those criteria. But the Republican Party can soften him by giving him some place, some position, because he feels that he has been elected and there is no equivalent position of a president you can give. There is no Administrative Reforms Commission or advanced community reservation, things like that we have in Kerala, to keep these people or have a advisory board like they have developed in Delhi for the elders. There is no such machinery there. So what they have to do for him is to make him a promise of 2024 nomination. Perhaps that might soften him a little bit. And he has been hinting at that. And so that's probably so Republican Party alone. Now they are backing him up. Instead of doing that, they must start dropping out from that solid support. And then make him vulnerable to some kind of an arrangement like that. Do you think that is possible?
I think so. Let me put it this way. I've been following it in the media, but it looks like Trump took away the whole thing. The Republican Party was merely watching and trying, meaning they were hitched their wagon to this star, and for the last 4 years,
the other way.
It is not the other way. So now they will have to get back control of their party, which they have lost to him. Because he, with his, through the Twitter and through the social media, he was reaching out directly, bypassing even the print media and the TV media. Even Fox now apparently are out of favor where he's concerned.
Twitter has long lost him.
So he's going directly to the people. And see, let's look at this thing. People who treat him like an object of ridicule forget the fact that more than 70 million Americans voted for this.
Voted for him. So if there was no coronavirus, he would have won the election. This is the judgment.
I think so. I think it is. All the indications are he would have won it hands down if it wasn't for the virus.
Right, because he seems to have supported a large number of his followers, and they are still happy and they are ready to. But the strange thing was the Indian community. There was a section of the Indian community itself which moved from Democratic Party to Republican. Initially, it was a huge change. But after Kamala Harris, it came back a little bit. But still about 10% of the Indian Americans voted for Trump. And they are proud about it.
That part, TPS, I've been really sort of puzzled by, because when I listen to commentators even critics of the corporate capture of U.S. democracy and all, which is being spoken about by people like Chomsky and Hedges and various other critics of what's happening there. Even when they say that Trump's main support, groundswell of support, has come from the less educated white voters. Now, this is not the picture which I think many people who are not closely following US developments think Trump represents the corporate sector. He doesn't actually represent the corporate sector.
The blacks voted for him, the Hispanics voted for him.
Exactly. So it's very interesting that if we get a breakdown of this 70 million people who voted for him, I think it will make people start reassessing all the assumptions which have been taken as axiomatic about US politics, that red states means they are red because of the following reason.
That's all
mixed up. He has sort of churned it up, really.
No, but another thing that he may want is a pardon. Because you may have read how many cases he'll have to face. He may have to either go to jail or leave the country. That's the kind of situation. So if you can have a machinery by which he can be pardoned and given a respectable place in the Republican Party, these seems to be the kind of things that it's going to lead to.
In fact, TPS, I have a feeling that you have really put your finger on one of the fears of Trump now, because Trump is now possibly worrying a lot about what will happen when he leaves the White House and is no longer the president. And then all these things come back to haunt him. And there will be plenty of cases. There's a lot of litigation which is going to go against him.
400 already. About 400.
So many of them.
And also the debt, tax debt.
Absolutely.
300 million.
With all that, and he has now, even earlier, I don't think he was the most diplomatic of guys, but now he has stepped on so many toes that there will be so many people gunning for him. From the taxman to the people who have been neglected, the contractors who have not been paid by the Trump organization. So many people are there, so many grievances are there, that I think he'll be a very worried man, and he will bargain very hard. And what he will probably, it'll be behind the scenes. This is all speculation. But I think what he will say is, you want my good behavior? This is the price. And the price maybe is that he will have to get some kind of indemnified against arrest and...
No, that will be done by the new president himself. But there is another way, for him to resign at this moment and make Pence the president, and he pardons him, and then they move out together.
Since I think now what one gets the feeling that the US, which used to be always in a superior position to lecture the whole world, now is in a position where people think anything is possible. Anything is possible in America.
Banana Republic. I just wrote an article for the...
Absolutely.
Now, in fact, I said banana republics are upset that they are better than United States, and still they are called banana republics.
They're called. Yes.
So that's what I wrote. And he can only be compared to Tughlaq in Indian history and Richard II in British history, etc.
That's right. That's right.
That's very pathetic. But of course, on the election front, they had already lost that glory. Last 2-3 elections. And the election commission in India, brightens by comparison. And
that's right.
And that, I think, very basic changes are necessary in the whole system.
No, in fact, that is interesting which you said that. And I feel, I think this extreme kind of scenario which is playing itself out, we still don't know how it will end up. but which is playing itself out is now on both sides. The Democratic side and the Republican side is causing them, I'm sure, a lot of sleepless nights because now, when there is a constitutional or a system of government which runs a lot on the basis of convention, custom, and say decorum and various things like that, and everything is not written down in black and white like in the Indian Constitution and the Indian electoral law. Everything is written on. There is no ambiguity anywhere. So because of in that system,
but the states play a lot of roles. No, well, so many differences. That is where the problem.
Exactly. Since we don't have a common electoral system for the US president, and it's based on, say, for instance, each of the states has its own its own electoral laws, which I found it an extraordinary situation. So I think, I was watching a small YouTube clip by one American commentator who was saying that the conceding, the speech by the losing candidate conceding, he said, is a very important event. Because if you really look at the letter of the law, there is nothing there which today says, which makes it unambiguous as to how to get an incumbent out of his chair if he does not want to leave the chair.
No law.
Exactly, no law. So apparently it is his concession speech where he concedes the election which triggers the transfer process.
As a gentlemanly act.
Exactly.
In fact, Al Gore had made the concession, and after that he won. And then later the Supreme Court turned it down. So maybe he doesn't want to face that. Okay, to change the subject, I read somewhere that people always ask you as to whether you regret the fact that you left the IAS. And your answer has been ambiguous because you are not very sure, right? But after you see the bureaucracy in Kerala today, aren't you sure that you are happy to have left? What do you think of the situation today?
No, so I'll answer it in two parts, this question. Okay. So the first part is, I think I was being I think I was being honest when I said that, because someday I might write my what shall I say?
The magnum opus.
Let's say the true story, the no holds barred story of an entrepreneur and all the kind of stuff which you have to face. And which is not just about Kerala, it's about India, doing business in India. So this ease of doing business, I think Niti Aayog and all are missing the point. It is not like a corporate doing business. The MSMEs are the backbone of any economy. And anyway, so what I'm saying is, so when I realize what I got myself into, the only reason I think I survived and with my sanity and my balance, everything intact till today is, it was, and I say that sometimes, saying that I had a tiger by the tail. I just couldn't let go. So it was not, one can ascribe all kinds of motives, like it was my determination, my commitment. I wanted to see it through.
Bank balance.
Yeah, exactly. So when I think of all that, I realize that, if you look at, I was from a typical middle class conservative family where the premium was on education, where my uncle...
the typical IAS officer of Kerala, of course.
Exactly. So the family consists of teachers, lawyers, doctors. There were no businessmen anywhere in the, whichever direction we searched, we couldn't find anybody who came anywhere near business. Right. So mentally and, in terms of constitutionally, I was not really equipped to the kind of stuff with the pattern which you get your self-esteem and self-respect and everything keeps on getting on an almost day-to-day basis. So it was because of that I thought that even with frequent transfers and the threat of frequent transfers and postings, etc., I still found my short career. See, I quit the IAS by the time I was 30. I finished only 6 years in service. But in 6 years, I had so many enriching experiences that I wrote 3 books about it. Just for those 6 years. So I feel that, if I think I would have been quite okay if I had continued in the service. And recently I posted something about in Uganda, a senior officer.
Yeah, I read that.
Yeah, and Uganda's son is Satya Nadella, who is the boss of Microsoft. Now, I asked a rhetorical question. Did the father or the son touch more lives of ordinary people? And in my mind, there's no doubt about it that Uganda would have touched the lives of far more people than Satya Nadella. And I feel if Satya Nadella is asked the question, even objectively, he will answer that his father would have definitely touched far more people. So to circle back to your question,
because there's a different level, of course, very different level.
It's a completely different level. But to circle back to your question, therefore, that when I sit down and think about it, I am almost sure that I would have probably preferred to, finish out my service in the IAS, and I think I would have done a good job. I think I would have, if not made a great name or anything, I would have felt very satisfied with what I did, because it would have been something which is all within my powers and
predictable.
Exactly.
And the power to change life of people.
Yeah, that's right.
No, but what happens is, once you're in the service, all of us think about this at one stage or the other. Leave the service and join something else, etc. Temptations are many. But what happens is, you start sensing a bit of power. Of course, in the foreign service, that is not really true. Yeah. And the position and the kind of adoration that you get, rather, undeserving. All this get into a head, and then you don't want to launch into an uncertain territory.
Yeah.
Many people join politics. Some of them became ministers, but all of them did not become ministers.
Yeah,
so
that's right.
There is no guarantee there that if you jump out. So it was a risk. It was a calculated risk, but in your case, it worked very well. So, but what I'm saying is, looking back at the bureaucracy today here, and the political interference and the kind of tragedy which is playing out in the open, doesn't it make you a little bit uncomfortable about bureaucracy?
No, in fact, without taking any names here, what I want to say is, a particular official is now he's now the target of the
they made a personification.
So everything is being trying to be traced back to that particular individual. What is ironic is, there is this thing like what they say, these various fallacies, narrative fallacy, outcome fallacy. With the benefit of hindsight, everybody seems to know everything. But actually, if you look back at the track record of that official, he has had an almost uninterruptedly outstanding career till this particular position.
Yes.
So my point is, in every previous position which is there, he has acquitted himself very creditably, left a name, whether it was in the district, whether it was at a district level project officer, or whether he was running a large public utility or various other things. Everywhere he has, I don't think I've come across too many IAS officers who can look back on a track record which is so good. So, of course, people make mistakes. I'm not, at all questioning that. But the kind of, the kind of cunning and the kind of scheming mind and everything which people are trying to portray this guy with, that is very improbable to me because of the past track record of this guy for the previous.
But doesn't it have another side, Bala?
Yeah.
You're looking at people who seem to be very good and proper and prim and proper officers, blah, blah. Don't you start beginning to think that such past may be haunting them too? Isn't that an uncomfortable position?
So that's actually,
when the angels fall, it is very deep.
Yeah, that's right. So the thing about this is also that I think, I think an IAS officer and a police officer and a foreign service, a diplomat, a doctor, these are vocations where you're going to be judged by very much higher standards than say others in government service itself. So one cannot say that no, but why are we being these are unreasonably high standards? You can't say that. So I think this goes with the job. You're going to be judged by those kind of standards, and that's why I think also this kind of way which like fall from grace kind of concept, because I mean you can't help it that people put them up on a pedestal, and when they fall, the reaction is also equally merciless and unsympathetic.
Yeah, like when Mr. Sheshan went and joined some political party and contested for this, all the whole image of the man suddenly disappeared. Anyway,
right.
Finally, our time is coming to a close. How about business friendliness in Kerala, and how has it improved? And are we on a trajectory? So many things are being done by the government. So much of business is coming, but also you have the bridge story in Kochi. We have the other collapses, and so business is on the one hand flourishing. On the other hand, some of them are collapsing. The government is playing in between. So all these are leading to what, from your own experience? And I hope that's a happy note we can conclude on.
My experience, and actually my next book is on that subject. I'm studying the MSMEs in Kerala, micro, small and medium enterprises in Kerala in the manufacturing sector, because that's the sector I know. And I have studied 50 success stories. In fact, many people are astounded when they know that there are 50 success stories in Kerala.
About 90% failures of startups.
So, and what is interesting, TPS, is these are all companies which were started after the 1980s. These all started as small startups like mine. And they were almost all of them started by first generation entrepreneurs first generation into manufacturing industry. They may have been trader or a planter or something before that, but they were not in industry before that.
Right.
They took the step. Now all of
no inheritance of business.
No inheritance of business. So, and they started off small. They grew organically, and in a reasonably short time, in say less than 20-25 years in some cases, they have grown to impressive scale and are very leading players in their respective sectors. For example, people will be astonished to know that India's most efficient steel casting unit is PK Steels in Kozhikode.
I see.
India's leading electronics hardware exporter is SFO Technologies in Kakinada. India's leading medical devices technology is my company.
Yours.
Exporter, Penpal, which today employs 1,400 people there. Asia's largest maker of dental prosthetics and implants is Dentcare in Muattupuza. India's largest maker of in vitro diagnostic test kits and reagents is Agape Diagnostics in Pattimattam near Kolanjeri. One of the world's largest makers of children's garments is Kitex in Kirakambalam.
Yeah, it's another story.
And there are many others. So, but all of these are company, and say for instance, India's today largest footwear maker is VKC Footwear in Kozhikode. And now these are all one of the largest success stories in spices and spice extracts is everybody's heard of Synthiter, but I'm talking about Eastern. See, Eastern has come up, and now it has really become the darling of the investment community, etc. So they're writing another playbook. And what is interesting is none of these companies benefited from any government subsidies. They didn't get any concessions from government in the form of industrial estate. None of them are located on any industrial estate or industrial development area. They've all gone and bought their own land, including what I had to do in Valapil Shala.
But for that, we have to thank Narasimha Rao, isn't it? Because he is the one who liberalized.
Right. No, so what is interesting is a combination of factors led to. Now, why did these units work in Kerala? And all of them are in high-tech manufacturing. And they're all in manufacturing starting. They're a brave new world of manufacturing. So The first part of my answer to your question is that I see a lot of green shoots
Success stories.
and success stories on which actually clusters can be built, should be built. In fact, those are the weaknesses in the industrial policy is our industries departments of the government of Kerala, both this administration and the previous administrations, they're all looking outside. They're not seeing the fact that all 50 of these companies I've studied, not one of them is from outside Kerala. They're all by people in Kerala. See, who better, which is the best advertisement for a state? It is the successful entrepreneur from that state. Because when outside businessman comes, he will of course listen to the sales talk from the chief minister and from the senior secretaries. But after that, they are prudent enough to stay one more day and check with the local business community. They will go to the local Chamber of Commerce, the local CII office, and they'll say, tell us, what is your experience?
And the truth is, yeah.
And that's where they get the real truth from. So I think the best advertisement for any state is a successful business community. We have a successful business community, but I have been saying this for so many, in every occasion I get, I've been telling people, why is all your orientation to the outside when not a single rupee has come in from any of those big events which you have conducted? On the other hand, the investors who are putting money again and again into Kerala are the guys from here, and nobody is bothering about them. So I think that's the good news. I think the good news is we have a growing...
No, but before you go to the bad news, is this bigger than the IT industry for which we are famous? We are some kind of IT coolies and we are not making use of it, but just exporting them. Is that bigger?
In Kerala, today I don't have the exact figures, but if you just take these 50 companies which I'm studying, there are 50 companies, at least 10 companies which employ more than 2,000 to 3,000 people. At least 10. So my point here is, here are 50 companies without any government concessions or incentives or sweeteners and all, without any of that. They are already employing more than 50,000 people, paying taxes, paying phenomenal wages. They are the best paymasters. None of them are doing any hanky-panky in that sense. And they are all people who are fully compliant, etc. in terms. So manufacturing industry, as the Chinese have shown, see, the service sector is precisely that. It can be built on a manufacturing sector. The basic productive sectors are agriculture and manufacturing. If these two languish, I don't know how we can become the back office, clerical office to the world and all that. I mean, those notions I just don't understand. As a student of economics, I don't understand. The primary production sectors have to be there. And agriculture has its limitation, though I think one interesting thing which is even the pandemic has shown in Kerala is that Kerala can become, we are a net importer for almost all the food items, etc. from other places. But
we can produce.
Because we can produce, but we cannot produce on large commercial farms because large commercial farms don't exist.
Land is not there.
But what we should do is every household should become an enterprise. And that is a tremendous possibility in Kerala because of the way our land use is today structured is every person, every family lives on its homestead. Ours is a homestead economy where the homestead will be, say, 25 cents of land or 30 cents of land with 10 coconut trees and two cows and a few chicken. And
that itself can sustain a family, yes.
Exactly. And the husband and wife, the wife might be a school teacher, the husband might be a plumber or an electrician. So when you look on the household as an enterprise, that is the way I think forward for us, not agriculture, industry, and even within agriculture, we can't say coconut farming. There is no coconut farmer in Kerala.
They all grow.
It just grows everywhere. Yeah. So I'm very positive. I'm very positive in terms of economic activity going forward. The government should not stand in the way, should make its lower echelons of the bureaucracy more friendly towards the MSMEs. MSMEs are people with very little resources. They don't have the time to go and waste outside government offices, standing in front of people. They cannot afford to pay the bribes and all that. So I think if we just tackle at the cutting edge level if we make it more friendly. Ease of doing business is not about, I think, it's not only about statutes. It's about whatever is the existing statute, how is it operating at the cutting edge level? And if we make that a little more friendly and little simpler, a little more transparent, I think the response from the business community will be phenomenal.
But then, Bala, are you suggesting that even if we don't have this remittance economy, we'll be able to survive? And how soon?
Yeah. Recently, TPS, what I suspected all along was that some of the figures in our public discourse, which are being usually employed when people discuss the weaknesses of Kerala, I have heard figures like 25% of net state domestic product is remittances. So recently, I was about just 2-3 weeks ago, Dr. K.P. Kannan, former director of the Center for Development Studies and member of the Sengupta Commission on the Informal Sector, one of India's brilliant economists. Kannan and a colleague have written a paper about the Kerala economy, and they have brought up some latest figures which have been cross-checked with national sample survey data and then GDP data and also the state accounting data. And one of the interesting figures is 2-3 interesting things. Everybody thinks remittances are coming down because people are coming back. But remittances value-wise is only going up. Even last year, it has gone up only. It has not come down. In fact, I am on the board of a bank. That bank gets a lot of inward remittances. The remittances are still going up. It is not coming down, number one. Number two, the character of the employment in the Middle East has been changing over the last 20 years. Whereas
more white collar.
Whereas 75% earlier were blue collar and semi-skilled and unskilled construction workers, now the percentage has been reversed. This low earning segment has come down, and the more and more of the people who are earning are the higher earning group. So the average remittance coming in, which was earlier $300 to $400, is now $4,000 to $5,000. So it has significantly gone up, which also means that many people are genuinely worried, saying what will happen when these people come back. Avarku joli illa joli, but these are people with assets because they got balance sheet strength. They're not going to starve if they come back and don't get a job immediately. It is not like if this return happened 20 years ago, it would have been a humanitarian disaster because people come back. They don't have whatever money they had. They would have put into a house and wasted it. Yeah, right, they would have spent it on conspicuous consumption like car, this, that, and all. But now you have people. Most of the people coming back are people with savings, with some investments, who can manage for some time. But of course, they will still need to find. They can possibly be encouraged to become part of the, that every home and enterprise economy, where they can do some gig employment, need not go for full-time employment, do some part-time employment, look after their own land, put some, put 4 sewing machines and give to neighborhood girls also an employment there. Like that, we have to get them oriented to this kind of thinking. Just like the Chinese. See, the Chinese, every home is an enterprise. So, Kerala can, because we have the literacy, we have the dispersed urbanization, and we have the reasonably good communications. There are no great distances or anything. Everybody is connected to the bus stop and to the railway station and to even airports and all that. So, with all that, I think we have a very good ecosystem already in place. Probably not by design, it has probably happened by serendipity, but this is ideal for creating a society of entrepreneurs where every house becomes an enterprise.
Very good.
Every home becomes an enterprise.
On that happy note, thank you, Bala, for that very interesting conversation. Thank you very much for sparing the time. All the best.
Thank you, TPS. I enjoyed that. Thank you.
Thank you.